Good day everyone, we are here to discuss Module 10 entitled Filipino Grievances Against Governor Wood. Introduction. This module focuses on the grievances of the Filipino against the governance of Governor Wood. The discontent of the Filipino under the rule of Governor Wood led to the cabinet crisis of 1923. This module also highlights how these grievances reflected the nature of the American colonial government. Gregorio Zaid, born on May 25, 1907 in Pagsanjan, Laguna, is one of the most famous Filipino historians of all time. His work serves as basis of many Philippine history textbooks. A handful of these works became essential secondary sources in studying historiography, making him the Dean of Filipino Historiographers. He obtained his BA and PhD degrees from the University of Santo Tomas and his MA degree from the University of the Philippines. Gregorio Zaid taught in various schools including the University of the Philippines, University of Santo Tomas, University of Manila, Far Eastern University and University of Hawaii. He became Professor Emeritus of History at the Far Eastern University after his retirement in 1964. Aside from being active in the academy, he was also one of the founders of the International Association of Historians of Asia and served as president of the Philippine Historical Association for 3 years. He was also active in Philippine politics. He served as mayor of Pagsanjan, Laguna from 1971 to 1975.
Historical background of the document. General Leonard Wood first arrived in the Philippines in 1903 after rendering his service in Cuba. He was appointed as a governor of the Moro province, which comprised the southern islands and Mindanao. At the same time, General Wood was also in charge of 5 districts and was commanding general of the American troops in Mindanao Peninsula. In 1921, U.S. President Warren Harding commissioned the Wood-Forbes Mission, headed by the former Governor-General W. Damarion Forbes and General Wood. The mission aims was to assess if the Philippines could already be declared an independent nation of the following Philippine nation. The policy implemented by the administration of the Francis Burton Harrison. The policy allowed Filipinos to be actively involved in running the government as the part of the American policy of benevolent assimilation. The findings of the mission showed that the Philippines still needed the Americans. As a response, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge appointed Major General Wood to be the Governor-General of the Philippine Islands in 1923. Wood's appointment was greatly accepted by the Filipinos considering his role in the liberation of Cuba, giving Filipinos high hopes for political emancipation.
Weber Wood was responsible for preserving the Filipinos station policy implemented by Burton. PISA's Executive Order Number 37, which was dominantly composed of Filipinos, was tasked to oversee the sale and management of stock and government-owned and controlled corporation. In an unprecedented move, Governor Wood tried to dissolve the Board of Control where he occupied a minority position and could never get the consent from the Senate President and the House Speaker to enable the government to administer or conduct a business. Subsequent generated tension between Filipino administrator and the cabinet. Crisis of the 1923 stemming from the Reconley case, a secret service detective accused of accepting bribery and having mistresses. The case was brought forward and was given the final decision of suspension by Jose P. Laurel. As the Secretary of the Interior, however, this was disregarded by Governor Wadwich Freeman prompted the Filipino leader to protest against his action in relation to his defense of the Philippine Autonomy Act or the Jones Law that provided Filipino legislative power. Such led to resignation of 5 Filipino cabinet secretaries of the department led by Secretary Laurel. 12. It was followed by the resignation of Senate President Manuel L. Quezon and House Speaker Manuel Rojas as member of the Council of State. This resignation caused the cabinet crisis of 1923. The growing executive-legislative tension became more personal as the governor blatantly exercised his veto power and most of the legislation passed by the Philippine legislature. Such development led to the drafting of Filipino grievances agenthood, which was approved by the Commission of Independence of November 17, 1926.
Good afternoon, ma'am. We are the reporters of Module 11, titled by Corazon C. Aquino's speech before the United States Congress on September 18, 1986. Introduction. President Corazon C. Aquino was invited to deliver a speech before the United States Congress on September 18, 1986, in recognition of the peaceful EDSA revolution which ousted Marcos and paved the way for Aquino to become the president. Intended learning outcomes. At the end of this module, the students are expected to A. Identify the highlights and salient points of the speech. B. Identify the accomplishments of Filipinos as a nation based on the speech. C. Explain the importance of the speech to the grand narrative of Filipino history. And D. Evaluate the relevance of the speech to the present time. Background of the author. Maria Corazon or Cory Sumulong Juanco Aquino, January 25, 1933, August 1, 2009. Become the President of Philippines because of the 1986 EDSA Revolution, a peaceful revolution that removed President Ferdinand Marcos from power. She was the wife of the assassinated opposition leader during the martial law era, Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. She served as the 11th President of the Philippines and was named Woman of the Year by the Time magazine in 1986 and 1999. She was chosen as one of the most influential Asians of the 20th century by the Time magazine. Prior to become president, she had never held any elected position, and she passed away on August 1, 2009 due to colorectal cancer. Historical background of the document. Having a joint meeting of the U.S. Congress to listen to a speech from an important figure, usually a visiting foreign leader, has been a practice on September 18, 1996. Corazon C. Aquino delivered her historic speech before the U.S. Congress just 7 months after assuming office under a revolutionary government brought about by the EDSA Revolution. During that time, Cory's presidency was unstable as she inherited a struggle economy. There was widespread poverty and unemployment in the country. The loyalty of military to her administration was still in question. Her administration faced a coup attempt backed by numerous civilian Marcos loyalists just 5 months into her term. Despite releasing political detains, the communist insurgency still posed a threat in rural areas. She needed foreign allies to recognize her newly established administration. The aforementioned historic speech had two goals. It aimed to express gratitude towards the United States for helping the Filipinos regain their freedom and to seek further assistance in rebuilding the government. Considering Aquino's decision to honor the foreign debts incurred by the Philippines during the Marcos administration.
Corazon Aquino, who came to power after the People Power Revolution in 1986, which ousted Ferdinand Marcos, primarily focused her speech on thanking the United States for its support of the democratic movement in the Philippines. She highlighted the successful and peaceful overthrow of a dictatorship through the collective will of the Filipino people. In her address, Aquino discussed the challenges of rebuilding a nation that had been under authoritarian rule for over 2 decades. She outlined her government's goals and policy directions, emphasizing democratic restoration, economic stabilization, and social justice. Aquino also called for continued assistance from the United States and other international partners to help the Philippines transition back to democracy in both its economic development. Her speech was an effective tool for strengthening the ties between the Philippines and the United States, underscoring the shared values of democracy and liberty. It also helped in garnering international support for her nascent administration, which faced numerous challenges including economic downturns, coup attempts, and persistent poverty. Corazon Aquino's address to the U.S. Congress was historic and symbolized a new chapter in the Philippine democracy, reinforcing the critical role of international solidarity and support in the global quest for democracy. Her commitment to upholding human rights and her vision for a most prosperous and just society. Aquino's address was well received, and it helped solidify the partnership between the Philippines and the United States.
The speeches play a significant role in shaping the grand narrative of a country's history. In the case of the Philippines, speeches have been instrumental in defining key moments and movements in the nation's development. One of the most iconic speeches in Philippine history is the Declaration of Philippine Independence, delivered by General Emilio Aguinaldo on June 12, 1898, which marked the country's liberation from Spanish colonial. The importance of this speech lies in its symbolic significance as the proclamation of the Philippines as a sovereign nation ending centuries of foreign dominance. It is encapsulated the aspiration of the Filipino people of freedom, self-determination, and nation identity. The speech served as a rallying cry for unity and resistance against colonial power, inspiring generation Filipino to fight independence and uphold value of democracy and sovereignty. In evaluating the relevance of this speech to the present time, it is crucial to recognize its enduring impact on Philippine society and politics. The principle of freedom, democracy, and nation pride exposed in Aguinaldo's speech continue to resonate with Filipino today, serving as a reminder of the struggles and sacrifices made by past generations for the country's independence.
So, Module 12, 4 Historical Events in Philippine History. One past but many histories. The history of the Philippines is divided into 3 in these periods: pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial. In particular, the colonial period has 3 segments: the Spanish, American, and Japanese periods. Needless to say, present Filipino society, culture, and politics are the products of many colonial influences. Nevertheless, such rich colonial past is riddled with conflicting perspectives that pave the way for numerous controversies to arise. One controversy is the actual site of the first Catholic Mass held in the Philippines. Many Philippine history books suggest that it was held at Limahuasa, Leyte by Fray Pedro D. Valderrama. After the Spanish conquistador Ferdinand Magellan arrived in the island and established a cordial relationship with the locals March 31, 1521. But in 1995, an Agusan del Norte, Butuan City representative bill in Congress contesting accepted the fact Limahuasa was church. Butuan, according to the findings of the historian Sonia Zalde. However, a maker in front of the St. James, the Great Parish Church in Bolinao, Pangasinan claims that in 1324, Fray Odorico Pordenone from Italy officiated the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines. Despite the conflicting claims, the National Historical Institute affirmed the earlier findings and pronouncement made under Republic Act No. 2733 in 1960, declaring Limahuasa as the site of the first Mass. Another controversy in Philippine history is the real story behind the 1872 Cavite Mutiny. The mutiny was considered to be unsuccessful and ended with the execution of the 3 Filipino martyrs, Mariano Gomez, Priest Jose Burgos, and Priest Jacinto Zamora, to which Dr. Jose Rizal dedicated El Filibusterismo. The executive of the 3 priests is considered to be one of the catalysts of the 1896 Philippine Gumburza Filipino martyrs. Furthermore, Rizal's restriction of his writing against the Catholic Church remains to be very controversial, since there is still no solid proof that he did retract his writings, despite the pressure of the alleged letter of this restriction. If in case concrete findings can be made regarding the controversy, it will be considered very valuable in understanding Rizal's nationalism and patriotism. More than that, an analysis of the retraction controversy can be used as benchmark in measuring how present-day society values martyrdom, courage, and bravery. Lastly, up to the present, the exact location and date of the cry of rebellion, in which Katipunero rebels denounced Spanish colonization, marked with the historical tearing of cedula, remain in question. Different accounts of eyewitness provide conflicting venues and dates for the historical cry of rebellion. Alleged destruction letter of Rizal. Despite the existence of such conflicting views and controversies, the significance of those events and the Filipino heroes and martyrs crucial to the independence of the Philippines from Spain should not be downgraded. Their vital role in the development of Filipino nationhood and nationalism should always be recognized. And that's all.
Good morning everyone, my name is Patricia Kikabidoy and I'm here to say that I'm reporting the Module 13 on In-Situ. Introduction. This section focuses on the story of agrarian reform in the Philippines and its significance to Philippine development. Agrarian issues have long existed in the country despite the effort of past administrations to address them. It looks into the programs and policies crafted by past administrations and assesses their contributions and shortcomings in terms of achieving effective and genuine agrarian reform policies in the Philippines. Intended learning outcomes. At the end of this module, as the students are expected to review the story of agrarian unrest and reform in the Philippines. Identify core issues related to agrarian reform policies and initiatives of every administration. Purpose, possible solutions to the present issues of agrarian crisis, and identify the significance of the issues on agrarian reforms to the understanding of the grand narrative of the Philippine history.
Landowners. As landowners, you possess the most available asset in the agriculture industry. Your goal is to always make the most out of the land you own in terms of revenue. Ang mga landowners ay mga individual, korporasyon, at institusyon na nagmamay-ari ng lupain o mga ari-arian. Sila ang mga may-ari ng mga lupang sinasaka, mga gusali, pinagpapatayuan ng mga gusali, o ginagamit para sa mga ibang layunin. Bilang mga landowners, sila rin ang may karapatan at mga karapatan kung paano nila mapoprotektahan ang kanilang ari-arian o ang kanilang lupain. Landless farmers. As landless farmers, you till the land of landowners in exchange for minimal wage or share of revenue. You serve as the core of the agricultural sector of the country. However, you struggle to survive because of assets, investments, and capabilities. Ang mga landless farmers ay mga magsasakang walang sariling lupa na kanilang sinasaka. Sila ay umaasa sa pagtatrabaho sa lupa ng iba upang kumita ng kabuhayan. Karaniwan, ang mga landless farmers ay nangangailangan ng regular na trabaho at kadalasan mababa ang kanilang sahod na kanilang natatanggap. Ang kanilang kalagayan ay nagpapakita ng paghihirap at limitasyon sa pag-unlad ng kanilang kabuhayan dahil sa kawalan ng sariling ari-arian o isang lupain. What is land reform? Land reform involves changing or establishing laws, regulations, or customs regarding land ownership. It also refers to the remedies to improve the relation between the tiller and the owner of the land or employee and employer in a farm. In other words, it identifies the right of the one who owns or uses a particular agricultural land. Ang karaniwang layunin ng land reform ay pagbabahagi ng lupa sa mga magsasaka, pagpapabuti sa kalagayan ng mga agraryo, at pagtutok sa pagsasama ng agrikultura sa iba pang sektor ng ekonomiya. Ito ay sinisigawa sa pamamagitan ng patakaran ng pamahalaan, organisasyon ng magsasaka o revolusyon upang baguhin ang kasalukuyang sistema ng pagmamay-ari at paggamit ng lupa.
Government. As government officials, your task is to always consider the welfare of every citizen. You should be guided by the utilitarian principle, the greatest good for the greatest number. Government perspective. As government official, your primary responsibility is to prioritize the well-being of every citizen. This means that you should always take into account the welfare of all individuals when making decisions. The utilitarian principle, which guides your actions, emphasizes maximizing overall happiness and benefit for the majority of the population. Business industry. As business owners, your foremost concern is maintaining a good and profitable business at all costs. As capitals, your goal is to always get the best profit at the least possible cost. Business industry perspective. As business owners, your main focus is to ensure the success and profitability of your business. This involves maintaining a good reputation and generating profit while minimizing expenses. Your goal as capitalists is to achieve the highest possible profit with the least amount of cost.
Challenges. 1943 Constitution to 1945. This constitution was promulgated during the Japanese occupation of the Philippines in World War II. It was implemented under the Second Republic, a puppet government established by the Japanese. The Constitution granted limited powers to the Filipino government but ultimately remained under Japanese control. Second one is 1899 Malolos Constitution. This was the first constitution of the Philippines. It was drafted during the First Philippine Republic under President Emilio Aguinaldo. The Malolos Constitution established a democratic government with a presidential system. It included provisions for the separation of powers, protection of civil liberties, and recognition of the Catholic Church. The third one is the 1935 Constitution. It was enacted during the Commonwealth era under President Manuel L. Quezon. It served as the fundamental law of the Philippines until martial law was declared in 1972. The Constitution established a democratic government with a presidential system. It defined the powers and functions of the three branches of government and provided the protection of individual rights. 1986 Provisional Freedom Constitution. This constitution was temporary. It was enacted after the People Power Revolution in 1986. It was put in place by President Corazon Aquino to restore democratic governance. The Provisional Constitution provided for the establishment of a revolutionary government and restoration of civil liberties. 1978 Constitution. It was drafted during the martial law period under President Ferdinand Marcos. However, it was not fully implemented as Marcos continued to rule under martial law until 1981. The Constitution aimed to legitimize Marcos' rule and consolidate his power. Lastly,
1987 Constitution to the present. It was enacted after the People Revolution in 1986. People Power Revolution in 1986. It replaced the 1972 Constitution and remains in effect today. The Constitution established a democratic government with a presidential system. It includes provisions for the protection of human rights, separation of powers, and decentralization of governance.
Hello, good day. My name is Kate Sandalo Balagay and I will going to continue what Ms. Ignacia says about the Philippine Constitution. So the Malolos Constitution of the First Republic of the Philippines was never fully implemented due to the outbreak of the Philippine-American War in 1899, leading to President Aguinaldo's arrest in 1901. During the American colonial period, such as the Philippine Organic Act of 1902 and the Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, governing the Philippines. This Act of 1934 paved the way for the creation of a constitution through a constitutional convention, resulting in a verified constitution in 1935. On November 15, 1935, it was later amended by the National Assembly in 1940 by changing the term limit of the president from 6 years with no re-election to 4 years with a possibility of having a second term. The 1943 Constitution replaced the 1935 Constitution was used during the presidency of Mr. Jose P. Laurel in the Second Republic. The 1935 Constitution came back into effect after the war in 1945 and was amendment giving us citizens equal rights, with Filipino citizens to develop natural resources and operate public utilities. Currently, there are calls in the Philippines for a constitutional convention to shift the government from a unitary to a federal system. Some also advocate for changing from a presidential to a parliamentary form of government. Previous administrations, including those after President Aquino, have attempted similar changes without success. However, the current administration is actively advocating for constitutional amendments, making it a key government policy. So that's all, everyone. Thank you.